This is Gemara and Shekalim Daf Chof Beis as we conclude Masechta Shekalim, the final Daf of Masechta Shekalim, and also as we conclude the month of Nisan. And this is the month of Nisan has been sponsored by the Grun family. I'm sure all the learning this month, the entire Masechta Shekalim, a good chunk of Psachim as well, the final week of Psachim, has been a tremendous Ilin Nishmasai for Chaim Mordechai ben Naftali Tzvi, and the entire Chabura, as everyone together concludes this Masechta, should be a tremendous Schos Ilin Nishama. Of course, our Chaylim man Vavega Shal ben Chaya, Chaim ben Sar Shlomo B'Siv ben Ezidel Sar Baskenan Luke Basim Bas Chayisei Yisrael ben Mindel Eliad Zepard Mishav Leish Shom Bas Naomi Vashaveg of Shivchana Fal David Mitari Vashmo ben Tila ben Mechan Rezel V'Chai Bas Mindel Bracha V'Tav Musa Dina Ido Bas Shin Mendel Zepotavia ben Avigel Fashas Viv ben Figel Dur Michal Zeb ben Zelo Huva Menachem Mendel ben Teiba B'Sach Shachali Yisrael as well as Shloshidach Bekaroi for Atalia Basita and Menachem Mendel ben Eli Sheva. We pick it up on the bottom of Chav Aleph Amid Beis. We're middle of the second halacha, the second mishnah of this parak, and we pulled up about smack in middle of the wide lines, leaving over purposely a bit more so that we could have a substantial shiur for the final shiur of Shekalim. So we learned in the previous Mishnah yesterday about the paroiches. How big was this paroiches? How big it was 40 by 20. What happened if it became Tami? If it became Tami with a Vlada Toma, Durabanan Tikatoma, we said you table it outside the base of Mevish. If it became Tami with an Ava Toma, table it inside the base of Mikdash. If it came down with an Avad Toma, the Raisa Toma, then you table it outside the base of Mikdash. You got to let it stay overnight to Erev Shemesh. We said if it's a new one, you leave it out so everyone sees it because they want to donate for this wonderful cause. And we saw how tremendous it was, 40 by 20 by 1, and it was 820,000 golden dinars worth, and it needed 300 koyahanim to table it. So we begin today by discussing exactly how many. We learned in the Mishnah that there were 24 strands that comprised each thread of the paroiches. But now we're going to have a three-way machlekes exactly if it was 24, 48, or 32 strands in reality making up the paroiches. So says the Gemara, Ilam Archot. If it would have just said the word chot in the pasuk echad, it would refer to one strand. It says kafel double, lishnayim, 2 strands. Shazor twisted, lishloisha, 3 strands. Mishzar lishisha. Now we double up the 3 is 6. Arba mikan, and therefore arba, and there's 4 for each one because it's made of the 4 different materials. 4 different types of wool, the turquoise, purple, scarlet, and linen. So from Mikan, Aya, Esther, and Ba'arba. 4 times 6 is going to be 24. Opinion number 1, like our Mishnah. Tani, we learned in the Mishnah, Shloshim Mishtayim, it's really 32. Ilu Amar Chot, if you just said Chot is Echad. Kafel, said Kafel Mishtayim is 2. Shazur, now this is where it differs. Now he's learning Shazur doesn't mean 3, but La'arba. It takes 2 and doubles it to 4. Mishtar double the 4, Arshmoina, 8. Arba, and now you have 8 times 4. Mikan, Aya, Tlas, and Vitartan is 32 strands per each thread. Tan Arba, Shmaina, different Mishnah says 48. Ilam Rechot is Echad is 1. Kafel Ishnaim is 2. Kliya, so he's darshaning a bit of the pasuk a little more, that the word Kliya means braided. Lishleisha, now it already bumps us up to 3. Shazur is Lishisha is 6, and Mishar is Lishneim Azur is 12. Arba, Mikana, Arba, Mitmanim, and then times 4 is 48. So this is the 3 machlek is exactly how many threads were within each thread of these 72 threads of the paroiches. Says the Gemara, Ksiv Echad Aimer, one pasuk says more about the paroiches, Maisa Roikim, that it was embroidered work. Ksiv Echad, and a different that it was a designer work. So what are these 2 things? Maisa Roikim, embroidery, parts of Echad means there's 1 image. Maisa Choyshev means there's Shnei parts and there's 2 images. Rav Yehuda, Rav Nechemia. Now we have to learn what exactly does that mean. Again, we're dealing with the paroiches between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Kedashim, exactly how it was created. So we have a machlekes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Nechemia. Chanamar Maisa Roikim is Arimikan, Varimikan. There were lions on either side. Maisa Choyshev is Mikan v'chalik mikan. It was only a lion on one side, but the other side was empty. V'charna Amar, and the other one says Maisa Roikim is Ari Mikan v'chalik mikan. Maisa Chayshav Ari Mikan v'nesher mikan was an eagle. Now it's good to point out two details. Number one, it says Ari and Nesher, but the Mepharshim speak out. It was really not any different types of creatures that were made on there, not necessarily specifically the lion and the eagle. And basically the difference here is did they go all the way through to the other side when they made the picture, and therefore the picture showed on both sides, or they stopped in the middle and the picture was only on one side? Says the Gemara, Bishmonim Vishtayim Ribo Yaisanasis was made with 820,000 golden dinars, and 300 kehanim were needed to put in the mikvah. Says if Yitzchak bar Bizna Mishim Shmuel Gozma, that is an exaggeration. It didn't really require 300, it just means it required a lot of kehanim. Tamantininu, we learned of there from Amaya Aliyah Kishol Shmeyos Kur. It was like on it, it's a similar Mishnah that says on top of the Mizbeach was 300 kor of bar Rabbi Bun B'Shem Shmuel Guzma. Again, it's just a Guzma showing us that the number 300. Why 300? The Mefarshim explain, but it's showing us that it was an exaggeration, basically just pointing out that the Parayches was very large. Says the Mishnah, the final Mishnah. Oh, it's not the final Mishnah, I'm sorry. The second to final Mishnah of Shekalim. Bisar Kachim Kachim. Now we're going to have a four-way machlekes. What do we do with the meat of karbanos that became tummy? So we have kachi, which is obviously the highest level, like an oila, shenitma, bin ba'avatoma, bin ba'ladatoma, bin bifnim, bin b'chutz, wherever it became tummy, beishami aymer kol yisarf b'fnim, you burn it inside the Beis Hamikdash. Chutz, there's one case, says beishami, that you're going to be burning that case outside. Chutz, mishenitma be'avatoma, meaning it's a very high level tama, b'chutz, and it became tummy outside the Beis Hamikdash. So says beishami, we're not going to let you take something with such a high level tama that's already outside and bring it inside to burn it, and rather, says Beishami, burn it outside. So the one case, you have two things that are necessary, two things working against you, says Beishami, for you to burn it outside. It has to be an avatoma number one. It has to be number two, that it became tamei b'chutz. Beisil oimim, the exact opposite extreme. Hakol yisar b'chutz. Really, you burn everything outside. Chutz mishenetu b'velada toma b'fnim. If it was a velada toma, a derabanan toma, and it already is inside the Beis Hamikdash, then we're going to let you keep it there and burn it inside. Those are the two opposing opinions of Beishami and Beis Hillel. Starting off the Mishnah. Now we continue on Chav Beis Amud Aleph with two more opinions. Rav Elazar Omer, Shenitum ba'ava toma, bim b'fnim bim b'chutz, yisar b'chutz. If it's a deraisa level toma, you got to burn it outside. Shenitum b'vlada toma, if it's a derabanan toma, then bim b'chutz bim b'fnim, yisar b'fnim. So Rav Elazar doesn't care where it became tamei, but rather Rav Elazar does cares whether it's av or vlad deraisa derabanan. Rav Akiva Omer, makam tomasei sham sirei vasei. Wherever it became tamei, that's where you burn it. Says the Gemara. Bar kapara Amar avatoma dvar Torah vladatoma midivreim. Bar kapara held that midaraisa is an av and midarabanan is a vlad, like we spoke out. Rav Yochanan Amar no bein zeh dvar Torah. So we start with a statement, a machlekes between Bar kapara and Rav Yochanan is to the status of toma. Rav Yochanan said, whether it's an av or a vlad, it's a tuma daraisa. Whereas Bar Kapara said, which is more the convention, like we keep on pointing out, only an ava tuma is a daraisa, but a vlad tuma is going to be a dira banan. So first we start with two questions according to Rav Yochanan. Again, according to Rav Yochanan, everyone already could realize, we explained the Mishnah, we explained it like Bar Kapara, which means it's a kasha on Rav Yochanan. The Rav Yochanan said everything is a daraisa. Ask the Gemara, the kasha the Rav Yochanan al the Beis Shammai. Why? The Beis Shammai Oimrim hakol yisar b'fnim. You burn everything inside chutz. Mishnito ba'avatoma b'chutz. But ask the Gemara, what's so special about avatoma b'chutz? Ma bin avatoma b'chutz, ma bin vladatoma b'chutz. What's the difference if it's an av or a vlad according to Rav Yochanan? Zev zeh loy dvar taru. The both are right according to Rav Yochanan. Question number one. Question number two. Take the same question and put it into Beis Hillel. V'afilu al Beis Hillel loy. Mekasha is also a shver, it's also a question. We burn everything outside. Chutz, except for what? Unless it's a vlad inside. There's no difference, according to Rav Yochanan. So the Gemara says, according to Rav Yochanan, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are very difficult. Now, the Gemara does not answer this question. But rather, the Gemara continues with asking on bar kapara. Now the Gemara says, "Lo yahavi bar Rabbanan ela al dvar kapara." So the Rabbanan, when they learned it at the Mishnah, they learned it according to bar kapara. And now, if you go within bar kapara's realm, which again bar kapara was one that said avatoma is the raisa of a lot of toma is the Rabbanan, v'kasha the bar kapara the Beis Shammai. We also have a difficulty. The Beis Shammai except if it's an avatoma high level toma outside the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara. I mean, again, when we explain the Mishnah, we sort of explain knowing everything. But I ask the Gemara, I don't understand. If it's an avatoma, who cares if it's inside or who cares if it's outside? They're both daraisa. So what's the difference? So answers the Gemara, a difficult answer. Difficult just in understanding. Says the Gemara, begin the Rav Akiva Amar. Rav Beis Shammai is going within Rav Akiva, the third opinion in the Mishnah, that says, that wherever it got mitame, became tummy, that's where you burn it. So if it became tummy outside, you're going to burn it outside. What's the obvious question? What about all the cases where what about the case of avatom became tummy outside? It doesn't fit. So difficult. But again, we learned the Mishnah the most simple way, that according to Beis Shammai, what the Gemara is saying is, if it's an avatoma, bachotz, if you're both going against you, that's when he's going to go with Rav Akiva, that you're going to burn it outside over there. Now the Gemara continues, according to Bar Kapara, vafilu al Beis Hillel moksha. It's also a question on Beis Hillel. Why? The Beis Hillel amar klizar bachotz. Everything is burnt outside the Beis Hamikdash. Chotz, except for what? Mishneh to vladatom v'vnem. Because that's it's a derabanan inside. Ma be vladatom v'vnem beim bachotz. But according to Bar Kapara, there's only difference between flat and half. There's no difference between inside and outside. Answers the Gemara. Says, says the love Devreimu. It's part of the question. They're both derabanan. Answers the Gemara. Begin to Rav Shimon Amar. He's going with the opinion of Rav Shimon that says Machalu Mashkil Shal Matzer Mishtachel Chutz L'Shalosh Machanais, that you send it outside the 3 machanais. Mefarshim explained that basically the teretz here is that Beis Hillel holds you always want to get it out of the Beis Hamikdash. Like Rav Shimon holds, everything is sent out. In the event that it's going to be a vlada toma and it will already be inside, so in that case, he'll let you keep it inside, but any other case, Beis Hillel is going to want you optimally to get it out of the Beis HaMikdash. Says the Mishnah, the final Mishnah in this fascinating Masechta, Shekalim. Says the Mishnah, Eivarei Tamid, the limbs of the carbon tamid nitnin, mechatzi keves ulamata, they're placed on the bottom half of the ramp, b'mizrach on the east side. We'll see a picture in a moment. B'mayriv on the western side, shal musafim nitnin, they put the carbon musaf limbs, mechatzi keves ulamata, the bottom half, b'mayriv, b'mizrach shal roshei chadashim, noisin al karkoi v'mizbeach milmayla. But again, one more time. Yeah, we read that. Right, okay, that was the issue. Let's read it again, taking it without the parentheses to get this girsa straight. I mixed it up. Again, so the Ivarim of the Talmud is b'mayriv. Shal musafim nitnan b'chatzi kevz ulamata b'mizrach. Shal rosh chadashim nitnan al karkov ha-mizbeach mil mailon. So there's 3 parts of the ramp of the mizbeach. There you see, this is where they put the Ivarim, the Makam Anachas of the Ivarim, on the bottom half of the ramp, on the left side, on the eastern side, or the western side, depending on the 2 gear size. Over here you see, this is actually how they would set up the different Ivarim on the ramp. And here you see, splitting the ramp in half, the bottom and the top for the Musaf and the bottom for the limbs, and the limbs of the Talmud are on the left, and the limbs of everything else are going to be on the right. And we also learned that the Musaf is going to be, and we also learned that the Musaf is going to be on the top, closer to the Karkai, which we know means that area around where the Kohanim walk, which we'll see in a moment. Says the Mishnah, Hashkalim va'bikurim ina noyagin al b'vnei havayis. The din of Shkalim and the din of Bikurim are only when you have a Beis HaMikdash. Avol, Meiser Dagan, Meiser Behemois, Bechayrais, Noyagin, Beim b'vnei havayis, Beim shlo b'vnei havayis. Whether we have a Beis HaMikdash or not, Hamakdish Shkalim u'Bikurim, Harei Kadosh. If you're Makdish Shkalim or Bikurim, they are holy. Rav Shimon Omer, Ha'omer Bikurim Kodesh, Einai Kodesh. He doesn't do anything when there is no Beis HaMikdash. Says the Gemara, Izau Karkoiv, like we just spoke out. What does it mean that the Musafim are placed on near the Karkoiv? Izau Karkoiv and Bezech, Amma bin Karen Lekamin, that's the Ar Amma between the horns. Makom Hiloch Ragli Kohanim, that's the place where the Kohanim walk, which we saw pictures of a few days ago. That's the top, around the top of the Mizbeach, that Amma that goes around. That's where the limbs of the Karban Pes of the Musafim are going to be closer to. Musvei Shabbos, Musvei Rosh Chodesh, Mi Koidem. Says the Gemara, when you have Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh, they coincide. Which Karban Musaf goes first? So you have a machlokes. Says Gemara, Rav Yomi Savar Mimare Musaf Shabbos uMusfei Rosh Chodesh. Says Rav Yirmiyah that first the Shabbos goes. I'm sorry, let's read it right. Mimari Musay Shabbos uMusay Rosh Chodesh. Musfei Rosh Chodesh Kaidmin. Rosh Chodesh comes first. What's the reason why Rosh Chodesh comes first? Says the Gemara, Chali Rav Yirmiyah min Adal. He brought a raya from the following: Shiru Shal Shabbos, Shiru Shal Rosh Chodesh. So we equate the Karban Musaf for the Shir Shal Yaim that you say on Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. So we learned in a brisa that Rav Yirmiyah says that we have Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh together. Shiru Shal Rosh Chodesh Kaidem. The Rosh Chodesh comes first. So we think that's a raya. It's that which we just saw, that the Musaf also goes first. But explains the Gemara, no. Amar Rav Yisa, Shnei Yitaman, we learn from there, Dam Rav Chia b'Shem Rav Yechon K'nei Lefarsamai, Uleitia Shir Rosh Chodesh. Why does the Karban, why does the Shir, the song of Rosh Chodesh come first? Because we want everyone to know it's Rosh Chodesh. So Ketzad Haya Isa, Sheikh and Musay Shabbos, Vaymer Aleim Shir Shal Rosh Chodesh. So what they would do is they would shech the Karban Musaf for Shabbos, but they would say the Shir for Rosh Chodesh. Param Hacham Musay Shabbos, Musay Rosh Chodesh. Musvei Shabbos Kaidmin. Why? Al Shem Kol Tadir Mechaver Kaidim Es Chaveroi. Tadir Sheinai Tadir Kaidim. Meaning, the only reason why we want to say the Shir Shal Yom of Rosh Chodesh first was because it was a separate reason. We want everyone to know it's Rosh Chodesh. But when you want to know which Karban comes first, we can refer back to the regular halachos of Tadir Sheinai Tadir, whichever is more common, which obviously is Shabbos, comes first. Says the Gemara, Shekalim ubikurim or noyeg only with the Beis HaMikdash. Ask the Gemara, Hashkalim kachu. Says the Gemara, but when you make shkalim, if someone's shkalim have kedusha tip, so that's going to be the din of Rav Shimon. So explains the Gemara, Rav Shimon ben Yehuda mishum Rav Shimon bein elu loy kishu. No. Nothing is going to have kedusha, whether it's shkalim or bikurim. Meaning that what was bothering the Gemara, what's the difference between the shkalim and the bikurim? They have the same halacha, and the Gemara says in reality neither of them are going to have kedusha. So today we learned in a brisa, ger bizman hazeh sarach lavi kinoi revias kesef. A ger nowadays, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash, unfortunately, hopefully very soon, but what does he have to do? He has to bring a quarter of a silver dinar for his kinaim, for his bird pair, for any time he became tamei. He's going to have to set aside that money. Amar Rav Shimon, bilu v'loy ma'arichin. Says Rav Shimon, different gear site. I'm sorry, I skipped. Rav Shimon Bitler Rav Yechon and Zakai Memneatakala. Rav Yechon and Zakai said, no, you don't have to do that. So again, first we said you have to set aside money for those kinim. Says Rav Shimon, no, Rav Yechon and Zakai said you don't have to. Ma'amneatakala. What's the reason? Kadadetani, like we learned, in Mekachim, V'loy Marichim, V'loy Macharimin, V'loy Magbin, Chumas, V'maisers, Bizman Hazeh. Nowadays we don't do any of these things. V'em Hektish, but if you did it, you gave away your value, you gave something to the Beis HaMikdash, Concise. Tisarif. The halacha is, let's say you did any of these things, or you gave clothing to the Beis HaMikdash, halacha is tisarif, you have to burn it right away. Habe'ema, the animal tiakar, it's going to be uprooted. Explains the Gemara, what does that mean uprooted? Ketzad, what do you mean by the animal? No, but you shut the door in front of the animal, and it dies on its own. Basically, you have to wait for it to be destroyed to lose its kedusha. V'hamois, and the money is Yalchul Yam HaMelech, will go to the Yam HaMelech, and this was all the takana of Yechon and Zakai, that nothing's going to have kedusha anymore, and rather everything, we're just going to destroy it and not worry about it. Which, there are some applications of this, even when it comes to Meiser. When someone takes a Meiser nowadays, he takes the Meiser, here in Eretz Yisrael of course, he takes the Meiser and he removes the Kedusha onto a coin, and that coin has to be destroyed, which is one of the reasons maybe it's not so advisable to do it on your own. But either way, that is the same application as we see over here of Yelchul Yam HaMelech. Explains the Gemara, Avar V'Hikdish Man. Avar v'hikdish. If he went and he made something kaddish after Rav Yochanan Zaki told him not to, but he did it. Explains the Gemara, min mad amar Rav Shimon bitla. For the fact that Rav Shimon said that bitla Rav Yochanan Zaki mneat kol, he said it's batal. Hada amra, we learned avar v'hikdish kachu, that it's gonna have kedusha, meaning he wasn't supposed to do it, but if he did it, it's gonna work. Meaning the whole din of Rav Yochanan Zaki was a din lechatchila. He said we don't want you to make kedusha, but if you did it, sounds like there will be kedusha onto the money. Rav Yehuda and to Urdaya, Ba'ikumi Rav Yosi. Rav Yehuda and Urdaya asked before Rav Yosi, Hacha at. Here in the case of the money, by the case of the ger, what is the story? As we move along to Chafezim Ebeis, Amar Kidshu. If he says that it's going to be holy, meaning the ger, he shouldn't have done it, but he did nowadays. V'achat Amar Loi Kidshu. Over here, we're saying the money is Kaddish, but by the case of the Shekalim, you're saying it's not Kaddish. What's going on? Lemaisa, is it a din b'diavad also? Meaning, first we said that even b'diavad it will not have kedusha. Now we're saying that b'diavad, if you said there's kedusha onto the money, it will have kedusha. Which one is it? So Amar Lei responded, Taman lekach ein mekachin lechatchila. Why not? Lefisha mitzvah lahakriv mitshuma chadasha. The reason that we're not going to tell you to give lechatchila by the shkalim, because there's always halacha that you want the money to come from the new truma, from the new shkalim. This really is a full 360, bringing us all the way back to Daf Beis. Ve'eyech havale yeshena, ve'eyech haviyala yeshena. And then this shekel, if you gave the money, if you set it aside, it's going to be an old shekel. And that's the reason why it's not going to have kedusha. Again, if let's say today someone gets up and tries to give a shekel to the Beis Hamikdash, it's going to have, if it would have kedusha, when the Beis Hamikdash is going to come, and Mir Hashem is about to see in the Gemara, that shekel is going to have a din of an old shekel. And we don't want that. We always want it to come from the new shkalim. But over here, of the case of the ger, when he is giving his money, what's the problem? The problem is that the money is going to be old. With regard to hakdeshais acherim, in regard to the birds of the ger, there's no din that should come from the new money, and that's the reason why it's going to work. So basically, the Gemara's answer, there's a fundamental difference to someone who wants to give a shekel nowadays or a ger that wants to give the birds. Both of them, lechatchila, Rav Yochanan Zaki said you shouldn't do it. But let's say you did it. Says the Gemara, if you gave a shekel, it could be a problem because it's a special Allah, like we learned all the way back in Daf Beis. This whole shkalim was all about you want to give for the new shkalim, and therefore, if you set aside a shekel today and then the Beis Hamikdash comes tomorrow, your shekel are going to be old shkalim, and we don't want it. Whereas it comes to the birds of the ger, we're not so concerned because the birds of the ger, there's no special halacha to come from the new ones. Says the Gemara. So one second, so if someone lamaisa goes and gives a shekel, which he shouldn't have done, so why doesn't he set it aside for when the Beis Hamikdash is going to be burnt? Why do we say you destroy it? Answers the Gemara, you know what the problem is? Not a problem, chas v'shalom. But maybe the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built like it was originally on the 1st of Nisan, which unfortunately we missed, and hopefully won't have to wait till next year. But maybe it will come on the 1st of Nisan. And then the new collection right away is going to be called new, Becha ben Nisan. And therefore, for that reason, my Yislach, what are we going to do? But in the case of the ger, there's no problem. So basically, the Gemara says that even if you went and separated that shekel, we're not going to want you to save it, because maybe the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built on the 1st of Nisan, and automatically your shekel is going to be an old shekel, because on the 1st of Nisan, the new collection begins, and we don't want this. Therefore, when you're going to take your shekel, you're going to destroy it. Nuna, Rav Ada, Barava, B'Shem Rav, Halacha, Ki Rav Shimon, that we paskin like Rav Shimon in our Mishnah, that when there's no Beis Hamikdash, and you try to give bikurim, it does not work. But if you try to give shkolim, it's going to yes work. But what does it mean it's going to yes work? Like we saw in the bottom of Amid Aleph, what it means is you're going to have to destroy it and throw it. Liyam Amelech Hadron Aloch Perek Laroikin Uslik Alam Mesech L'Shkalim. It has been quite a fascinating journey through Yerushalmi. I'm sure for many of us, this is probably the first time we finished a Mesech of Yerushalmi. And I guess the bracha and the tefillah that will leave this Masechta is like the Gemara just concluded, the Beis Hamikdash should be built very, very soon, number one. But number two is that Mirz Hashem, not only should we have this chos to learn together Bavli, starting Yuma tomorrow, looking forward, everyone grab a friend, spread the word, but hopefully Mirz Hashem, we should even be able to learn more Masechtas of Yerushalmi together, and not just leave it at Shekalim one day. We should forge back into Yerushalmi. Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. We should be able to learn many, many more Masechtas as we continue on our path through Shas together.